At some point this year, you probably got a tax form that told you exactly how much money you made and exactly how much you owe. Now imagine you open your mailbox in January and there's a second form inside. Same layout, same seriousness, except it isn't from the IRS. It's from you. It's called a behavioral 1099, and it lists what you paid in a tax nobody talks about. The money you lost to impatience, to chasing headlines, to panic selling, to just this once. Trades you swore were calculated. No opinions, no excuses, just a number. And the scary part is this: most investors aren't losing because they lack intelligence. They're losing because they keep paying that invisible tax and they don't even know it exists. If you've ever felt your stomach drop after a red day, if you've ever watched a stock rip higher right after you sold it, if you've ever said, "I'm a long-term investor," and then refreshed your brokerage app like it's a heartbeat, monitor. This video is for you. Not because you're weak, not because you're reckless, but because modern markets are engineered to make undisciplined behavior feel like being informed. And Benjamin Graham, decades before push notifications, before meme stocks, before zero DTE options, built a philosophy that works precisely because it doesn't require genius. It requires discipline, and not the motivational poster kind, the structural kind, the kind you can design into your decisions so your emotions don't get a vote when it matters most. Let's start with something uncomfortable. The market doesn't just take your money when you're wrong. It takes your money when you're inconsistent. When your rules change based on your mood, the market becomes a mirror that reflects your worst impulses and charges you for the privilege. That's the discipline tax. It's not a fee on your statement. It's the spread between the returns you could have earned by sticking to a rational process and the returns you actually earned because you kept reacting. Here's the trap. In the United States, you're surrounded by a culture that worships the smart move, the clever trade, the perfect timing, the "I saw it coming" story, CNBC panels, earnings season drama, hot takes on interest rates, TikTok clips about the next AI stock, Twitter threads that turn a chart into a prophecy. It trains your brain to believe the edge is information, that if you just watch closely enough, if you follow the Fed, track inflation prints, interpret the yield curve, listen to the right podcast, you'll outsmart the crowd. Benjamin Graham's core message is almost insulting in how simple it sounds. You don't need to outsmart the crowd. You need to stop joining its emotional stampedes. Graham drew a bright line between investing and speculating. Investing, in his words, is an operation that, after thorough analysis, promises safety of principal and an adequate return. Operations not meeting these requirements are speculative. Notice what's missing? Excitement, speed, bragging rights. There's no mention of predicting the next quarter or calling tops or being early. The goal isn't to be impressive. The goal is to be safe and still get paid. Now, before anyone comments, so you're saying just buy the S&P 500 and chill? Hold that thought. Index funds and S&P 500 ETFs can absolutely be a sane baseline for many people, especially inside a 401k or a Roth IRA, where automation is a form of discipline. But the point today isn't what you buy, it's what you do after you buy. Because the same person who believes in the market long-term can still torch their financial future by turning long-term investing into short-term reacting. Think about how your investing life actually looks in 2025. It's not a quiet library, it's a casino with a news desk attached. You can place trades from your couch in seconds with confetti animations when you win. You can watch options change like they're sports betting lines, especially 0DTE options that expire the same day, designed to convert anxiety into action. You can jump from crypto hype to meme stock mania to whatever narrative is trending this week. And it all feels rational in the moment because your brain is good at one thing: storytelling. Graham warned about this in a way that feels almost supernatural now. He created Mr. Market. Mr. Market is your business partner who shows up every day offering to buy your shares or sell you his at wildly different prices based on his mood. Some days he's euphoric, some days he's depressed. The intelligent investor doesn't take Mr. Market's emotions as guidance. He takes them as opportunities. He doesn't argue with Mr. Market. He doesn't try to fix him. He simply decides when Mr. Market's price is useful and when it's nonsense. Here's the modern update. Mr. Market doesn't show up once a day anymore. He texts you all day. Buzz. Breaking news. Rates might stay higher for longer. Buzz. AI company beats earnings. Stock up 18% after hours. Buzz. Recession fears surge. Buzz. This stock is trending. Buzz. Your position is down 7% today. And every buzz is an invitation to pay the discipline tax. So, let me give you a quick mirror test. Don't overthink it. Just notice your impulse. If you open your portfolio and see one holding down 18% in a week and another up 24% in 2 days, which one do you click first? Most people click the winner first. It feels good. It's relief. At least something's working. The brain grabs the dopamine, and then you start daydreaming. Should I add? Should I take profits? What if it keeps running? Others click the loser first. It's threat scanning. How bad is it? What did I miss? The brain is trying to regain control, and control often looks like action. Maybe I should sell before it gets worse. Either impulse is human. The problem is when the impulse becomes a policy, because discipline is not willpower. Willpower is what you use when you're tired, hungry, stressed, and scrolling your phone at midnight. Willpower is unreliable. Graham didn't build a philosophy that depends on you being heroic. He built one that depends on you being structured. Here's the hard truth. Your investing results will be determined less by your intelligence and more by the number of emotional decisions you allow yourself to make. So, how do you reduce emotional decisions without turning into a spreadsheet monk? You do what Graham did. You move your decision-making upstream. You pre-decide what matters before the market tries to hijack your brain. Start with the simplest distinction that instantly makes you calmer. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. If you can't separate price from value, you will be yanked around by volatility forever. If you can separate them, volatility stops being a threat and starts being information. Sometimes useful, often irrelevant. This is where people misunderstand value investing. They think it means cheap stocks or old companies or low PE ratios. That's not the core. The core is valuation discipline. You anchor your decisions to a reasoned estimate of intrinsic value, and then you demand a margin of safety, meaning you want a meaningful gap between what something is worth and what you're paying for it. Margin of safety is not a buzzword. It's the entire game. It's the difference between engineering a bridge to hold far more weight than you expect and building it just strong enough for a sunny day. Because the market will not give you sunny days only. It will give you layoffs and recession, inflation scares, sudden rate hikes, banking stress, geopolitical shocks, earnings disappointments, and moments where everybody on your screen suddenly speaks in absolutes. In those moments, genius doesn't save you. Margin of safety does, and the discipline to insist on it does. Now, if you're thinking, okay, but intrinsic value is fuzzy. Nobody knows the future. You're right. Intrinsic value is an estimate. Graham wasn't promising certainty. He was promising a better bet. That's why he cared about balance sheets, earnings power, cash flows, and conservative assumptions. He wanted you to be approximately right with a cushion, rather than precisely wrong with confidence. And that brings us back to the behavioral 1099. If you could see the discipline tax, you'd notice patterns. You'd notice you tend to buy after excitement and sell after fear. You'd notice you feel smart near tops and careful near bottom. You'd notice you abandon your plan exactly when your plan is most valuable. So let's name the discipline tax in a way you can actually feel. Every time you make a decision primarily to relieve emotion, relief, fear, excitement, envy, you are paying a fee. You're paying with slippage, with taxes, with missed compounding, with buying higher and selling lower than your own logic would approve. And what makes it brutal is that it compounds negatively. Once you teach your brain that emotion leads to action, your brain demands more action next time. You aren't just losing money. You're installing a habit. Graham's system is, at its core, a habit interrupter. But we need something practical, something you can use even if you're not a professional analyst. Even if you're mostly in index funds, even if you only have a handful of individual stocks, even if you're building wealth through a 401 Kohei match and automatic contributions. Here's the first rule that changes everything. If you can't explain in 2 sentences why you own something and what would make you sell it, you don't own an investment. You own a story. Stories aren't always bad, but stories without numbers become religion, and the market punishes religion when the sermon changes. Now, I'm going to give you a rule that sounds too simple to matter. It will feel like it can't possibly compete with people who have Bloomberg terminals and finance degrees. And yet, it's exactly the kind of rule Graham would respect, because it attacks the real enemy, unnecessary decisions. It's what I call the 2-decision rule. For any asset you own, an individual stock, an ETF, even a sector fund, you only get 2 decisions that actually count. Decision 1 is before you buy. What is my reasoned valuation range? And where is my margin of safety? Not, do I like the CEO? Not, is it trending? Not, did it beat earnings? Not, will the Fed cut rates? Those can be inputs, sure, but they're not the anchor. The anchor is, what is this worth to a rational owner? And am I paying a price that gives me room to be wrong? Decision 2 is before you sell. Did something change about value? Or did something change about mood? This single question, asked honestly, saves more retirements than most people will ever admit. Because here's what usually happens. Price drops, and your brain calls it information. Your brain says, the market knows something. Sometimes it does. Often it doesn't. Often it's just Mr. Market having a panic attack. And in those moments, if you don't have a pre-written thesis, you don't have a compass. You have a weather vane. Graham's genius was that he treated the stock market as a place to shop, not a place to be evaluated. Most people treat the market like an exam. Did I pass today? Am I smart? Am I failing? That makes you fragile. It turns every red day into identity damage, and identity damage creates bad decisions. An intelligent investor treats the market like a department store where prices fluctuate. If the store slashes prices on something you already own and still want, you don't panic. You lean in, carefully, rationally, within your risk management rules. If the store raises prices to ridiculous levels on something you own, you don't fall in love with the price. You consider trimming, or at least you refuse to add. And now we have to address something that's going to irritate some people. Diversification. You've heard diversify so many times it's background noise. Graham agreed with diversification, but not as a magic charm. Diversification doesn't protect you from undisciplined behavior. In fact, diversification can become an excuse to avoid thinking, "It's fine, I'm diversified," while you still chase returns, still sell in panic, still jump between narratives. In the real world, discipline often looks like boring mechanics. It looks like auto contributions into a 401k every paycheck, especially when the market is ugly and your coworkers are whispering about layoffs. It looks like using a Roth IRA consistently, not heroically, steady funding over years, not a burst of enthusiasm followed by neglect. It looks like choosing a simple allocation you can live with, some mix of broad ETFs, maybe some bonds if it fits your risk tolerance, and then rebalancing on a schedule, not on a feeling. It looks like understanding that you don't get extra points for making more moves. This is the part nobody likes. So, let's make it real. Imagine two investors. Investor A is sharp, reads everything, follows macro, has opinions on CPI prints and the dot plot, loves discussing whether markets are pricing in cuts. He's always adjusting. If AI stocks are hot, he rotates in. If small caps look cheap, he rotates out. If recession fears rise, he moves to cash. He feels in control because he's always doing something. Investor B is average, no special access, but she has rules. She invests a set amount into broad index funds and ETFs every month. She maxes the 401k match. She uses a simple portfolio, and if she buys an individual stock, she writes down why she's buying, what she thinks it's worth, and what would prove her wrong. She doesn't refresh her app 10 times a day. She doesn't need to be right this week. She needs to be consistent for a decade. Guess which one is more likely to end up wealthy? Not because Investor B is smarter, because Investor B leaks less money through behavior. That leak is the discipline tax. Now, some of you are thinking, fine, but what about opportunities? What about buying great companies when they're down? What about value investing in a world dominated by growth? This is where Graham becomes more relevant, not less, because a market that rewards hype and speed creates mispricing. It creates moments where quality businesses get punished because of a headline cycle, or where mediocre businesses get celebrated because of a narrative. The more speculative the environment, the more valuable a disciplined valuation anchor becomes. But disciplined does not mean stubborn. Graham never said, never sell. He said your reasons should be rational. If the business deteriorates, if the balance sheet becomes fragile, if the thesis breaks, if the margin of safety disappears because the price outruns value, those are value-based reasons. Those are not mood-based reasons. So how do you actually execute this when the market is screaming at you? Here's the practical tool I promised at the beginning, the 60-second circuit breaker. It's designed to interrupt the moment where emotion becomes action. And it works whether you're an index investor, a dividend investor, or someone who carefully picks individual stocks using fundamentals. The next time you feel the urge to do something, buy more because you're afraid of missing out, or sell because you're afraid of losing more. Pause and run these questions out loud if you can. It sounds ridiculous. It works anyway. First, what changed? Price or value? If it's price, you have no reason to rush. Price changes constantly. That's Mr. Market texting. Value changes slower. Value changes when fundamentals change, cash flows, competitive position, balance sheet strength, long-term earnings power. If you can't name the value change, you're reacting to mood. Second, if the market closed for 3 years, would I still be comfortable owning this? This is Graham's temperament test disguised as a simple question. It forces you to admit whether you own a business or a lottery ticket. Long-term investing isn't a slogan. It's a willingness to hold through boredom and discomfort. Third, am I acting on my thesis or borrowing someone else's conviction? If your reason is everyone says it's trending, it's the next big thing. You're renting belief. Rented belief evaporates the moment the price turns. Owned belief is written down, grounded in analysis, and tied to intrinsic value. Fourth, where is my margin of safety right now? Not where it used to be, not where you wish it were right now. If you're buying after a big run-up because the story is intoxicating, crypto adoption, whatever the narrative is, ask yourself, is the price giving you a cushion or is it demanding perfection? If it's demanding perfection, you're not investing. You're auditioning for luck. Fifth, what decision am I actually making? This one is sneaky because sometimes you think you're making a sell decision, but you're really making a relief decision. Sometimes you think you're making a buy decision, but you're really making a belonging decision, trying to feel smart with the crowd. If you can name the real emotion, you weaken it. If you pretend you're purely rational, it controls you. Now, I want you to notice something. None of these questions require genius. They require honesty and a small pause. That pause is the difference between compounding and self-sabotage. Graham's entire philosophy is built around protecting you from your worst self at the worst possible time, because the market's cruelest trick is that it makes the wrong decisions feel urgent. When prices are falling, the urge to sell feels like safety. When prices are rising, the urge to buy feels like intelligence, and both can be traps. Let's tie this back to the two worlds most Americans live in: retirement investing and extra investing. In your retirement accounts, your 401k, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, your best friend is automation. If you can set a contribution schedule, choose low-cost diversified funds or ETFs, and rebalance occasionally, you've already built discipline into your life. You're lowering the number of decisions you have to make. That is an edge. If you also want to buy individual stocks because you enjoy analysis, because you're building a dividend portfolio, because you believe you can be an enterprising investor, then Graham gives you the guardrails. He would tell you to do thorough analysis, to be conservative, to diversify appropriately, to avoid overconfidence, and above all, to insist on a margin of safety. He would also tell you something that feels almost offensive in modern finance culture. You don't get paid for being interesting. You get paid for being right enough, long enough. That's why so many smart people underperform. They confuse activity with complexity, with superiority, confidence with competence, and the market happily cashes that confusion. Now, let's close the loop with the behavioral 1099. Because if you're like most people, part of you wants a clean ending. So what should I buy? A ticker symbol, a list, a shortcut? That part of you is not evil. It's just tired. It wants certainty. But Graham's gift isn't a list. It's a framework that keeps you from blowing yourself up. So here's what I want you to do. Just as a thought experiment, imagine that behavioral 1099 arrives next January. What would it show? Would it show that you paid the discipline tax by selling during a drawdown and buying back higher? Would it show that you chased performance, jumping into what was already hot, then abandoning it when it cooled? Would it show that you let headlines about inflation or the Fed turn your long-term plan into short-term fear? Would it show that you treated investing like entertainment? Now imagine a different form. Same envelope, same seriousness, but this time it's a disciplined dividend. It lists what you earned by doing almost nothing at the exact moments when everyone else was doing too much. It shows the value of not selling in panic, the value of not buying euphoria, the value of contributing consistently to your 401k when sentiment was awful, the value of holding quality businesses when Mr. Market tried to convince you they were suddenly worthless, the value of insisting on margin of safety, the value of making fewer decisions and making them with clarity. That dividend is real, it's compounding, and it's available to ordinary people. That's the twist that never goes viral. The advantage is not brilliance. It's behavioral control. So if you take nothing else from this, take this sentence and keep it somewhere you'll actually see it. Mr. Market's job is to offer you prices. Your job is to decide based on value when those prices deserve your attention, not your fear, not your excitement, your attention. And the next time your phone buzzes with a price alert, a breaking headline, a hot stock trend, or a friend bragging about a trade, remember the simplest question in this entire video. What changed? Price or value? If it's price, breathe. If it's value, analyze. If you don't know, do nothing until you do. That's not passive. That's discipline. And discipline is the closest thing the market ever gives you to a superpower that doesn't require genius. If you want, I can turn the 60-second circuit breaker into a one-page template you can literally copy into your Notes app. Something you can use before every buy and every sell, whether you're in ETFs, dividend stocks, or a mix with your 401k and Roth IRA. If you want that, comment discipline. And when you do, don't just type the word, make it a promise to your future self that next year's behavioral 1099 is going to look very, very different.